and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup. Happy Thanksgiving.
We hope you all had a lovely Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we have lots to be thankful for and lots to be concerned about this week in the news. The Supreme Court has taken two religious freedom cases that could threaten LGBT rights.
Scary. Even I have trouble figuring it out. Imagine what they're going to do. But we'll discuss it and try to set that up for you. But good news from Illinois, where a federal judge has ruled that one lesbian couple in dire circumstances can marry now ahead of the June 1 official start date for everyone else.
And out in Oregon, the rights of domestic partners have been acknowledged by the Ninth Circuit Federal Appeals Court.
And the Texas National Guard is no longer going to fight giving spousal benefits to same-sex couples in the military.
And the new California law protecting transgender students looks as if it is safe from a referendum.
I'm not counting on that. I think don't speak too soon.
Okay. We're talking about the math involved in checking the signatures.
Yeah, don't count our chickens. Okay. Ahead of time. IKEA has, you thought they were a gay-friendly company? They have pulled a lesbian-themed story from their Russian promotional magazine.
The American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecologists has reversed its decision, barring its members from treating anal cancer in men.
That took about 24 hours. We're very happy. But the Vatican is still trying to stop gay love.
In more ways than one.
Yeah.
World AIDS Day is marked around the world on December the 1st.
Alec Baldwin, as you may have heard, has lost his job at MSNBC, and one of the people he's screaming at, he's calling a gay fundamentalist.
I'm going to give you my reviews on Broadway of the all-male Richard III.
That's the way it was always done.
Yeah. Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, which is sort of like Richard III, and Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart in Waiting for Godot, which they're now calling Godot.
I was waiting to hear how you pronounced it.
I say Waiting for Godot, I'm an American.
We'll preview the new HBO series coming in January, Looking, about gay men in San Francisco, and review Mandela, The Long Walk to Freedom.
So I'm very concerned about these Supreme Court cases that have been taken. Now, the fact that they're taken doesn't mean we know what's going to happen with them. But basically, this is an employer, Hobby Lobby, fairly big small business, if you want to put it that way.
Craft store.
Yeah, and the owner of it is very religious, and he says, I don't want to pay for a plan, as Obamacare requires me to, that covers contraception.
We run our business by biblical principles. We are not open on Sundays. We give particular care to our employees to make sure they're all happy and well taken care of.
All that is fine, but you're bound by civil law if you are a public business. He can't discriminate on the basis of race, religion, lots of things he can't do. And, you know, here's where the point is, where does this end? And I hope the justices ask this question. Suppose an employer thinks that AIDS is God's punishment. My religion teaches me this, so I don't want to cover any treatments for AIDS. God has taken care of that.
Well,
you cannot have this in the... I mean, if we're going to turn every single individual corporation into a religious entity, there is no separation of church and state.
Let me throw a few things out here. You say civil law forbids discrimination, as of course it does, but their argument is that the United States Constitution protects their religious freedom and their expression of their religion. And they claim, before you jump in, they claim that to run their business on these principles, which include not financing people's abortions or contraception use, is their expression of their religion. Now, Am I happy about this? No.
Well,
but there is a real dilemma here. There is a real dilemma here. We've discussed it many times about the sort of libertarian argument of should you have any non-discrimination laws or shouldn't you?
Well, we do, but it's the law.
Yes.
And these laws have never been, the civil rights laws have not been found unconstitutional. I mean, you could get to
they're trying to get them called unconstitutional.
I know a lot of people during the Vietnam War who didn't want to pay their taxes in protest of the war. They went to jail for it. Or whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, you can say, I don't want to pay for these things, and it's against my conscience. Fine, have your conscience, but there are civil penalties for that.
And I will agree. They're doing business in the public sphere. They have all sorts of entanglements with federal law.
They have many non-religious employees.
Well, that's so what?
No, that makes a big difference.
They own the business. They own the business. I'm not talking, I'm not defending them. I am saying...
How is the case going to work out?
They have a potential winning argument because there is a specific protection of religious expression in the United States Constitution. And you may say that these laws exist, but it is not impossible that the Supreme Court will say that their constitutional right to freedom of religious expression trumps civil rights laws.
And counselor, I will just ask you, where does that end? You're a Christian Science, and you don't believe in medicine at all, so you're not covering anything. You can't go to the doctor. We're just going to pray for you.
I don't like this. I'm just telling you there is a theoretical argument
here. And I am
here.
saying when you enter the public sphere,
just as they have succeeded in allowing corporations to be called people for purposes of political donations.
And this is good. If we lose this case, this is going to open the door to people saying, I object to working with gay people.
Absolutely. And there are going to be
religious grounds.
Racial arguments and
sex,
medical
gender,
and sex, and all of that is going to be on the table.
So let's not open up a Pandora's box here.
I don't want to open up the Pandora's box. I'm merely trying to explain that they have a reason that they are going to the Supreme Court with this, and we should not dismiss it out of hand as unlikely to win, especially given the Supreme Court we have.
No, I'm very hopeful that it won't win.
Well, you can be hopeful all you want, but be realistic about the fact that they have a significant argument they are making.
Because, most religions are very anti-gay. Even the Pope, everybody who makes all these nice statements about economic justice this week and all that kind of stuff, took the time to reiterate his opposition to homosexuality, moral relativism, women's ordination, all those kinds of things. So he's not as warm and cuddly as you might think, although his statements on economic justice have been tremendous.
Yeah.
How about economic justice for us?
It's a complicated world out there, and we have some trepidation about how all of this is going to turn out.
Well, and the Salvation Army, acts like it says now it's not going to discriminate in the provision of services. Of course, they don't, but they're not changing their view on.
Well, they claim they don't discriminate in hiring either, but what they don't do is give benefits to the same-sex partners of employees or appreciate us and who we are.
Right.
But their fight this week was that they had pulled up an old website where they had a list of resources, including referring people to a couple of ex-gay ministries for sex addiction, and it was pointed out to them that this might not be appropriate, and they took them right off and said, no, we don't discriminate.
Let's get to all this marriage news.
Okay.
It's quite big news from Illinois, where a federal judge ordered an early marriage license for a lesbian couple because one of them has terminal cancer. Now, I don't know how many more exceptions are going to happen before June 1st when the law goes into effect, but I mean, everybody's got a reason that they want to get married and get rights and get all kinds of things.
And one could say this complicates these laws too. The law is marriages start June 1st. Why are people getting exceptions?
Well, the Ohio judge gave a bunch of exceptions too for people who were terminal. Could you just get it over with? Stop dragging this thing out.
I just think everyone makes exceptions for their own points of view.
Yes.
And it's fascinating. All right, in Arkansas, the Supreme Court said that a gay dad can see his kids with his partner present. A lower court had ruled that he couldn't, and that this was a violation of the, morals clause or whatever of the divorce. But the Arkansas Supreme Court said these decisions should be made on a case-by-case basis in the best interests of the child, and clearly this was a father who had a good relationship with his kids, and there was no reason his same-sex partner shouldn't be present when visitation occurred.
Arkansas.
Yep.
Okay. In Texas, well, first of all, two same-sex couples are asking a federal judge in San Antonio to block Texas from enforcing its ban on same-sex marriage.
Fascinating.
But then the other big news from Texas this week, we were kind of on a roller coaster there. The National Guard first said it would drop all spousal benefits to avoid providing gay spousal benefits, and then it said it will process applications for gay service members, with the Pentagon providing federal personnel to do so. So the holdouts in the National Guard don't want to do this now, apparently are Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, and South Carolina.
Oklahoma has solved its recalcitrance by saying no spousal benefits for anyone straight or gay. You have to go to the federal facility.
Yes,
Texas,
they're doing that to develop resentment against gays for spoiling it for everybody else.
That's right. All the straight couples will say, "What do you mean?
We're good.
Live like us." But then Texas wanted to do a similar thing, and the Pentagon has talked them out of it. Now,
maybe it's those new glasses Rick Perry is wearing.
Well, they've sort of pulled what's the word I want? It's a phony solution, because the fact is all these state facilities where they didn't want to provide the IDs or the benefits or whatever are all financed by the feds to begin with, have federal personnel there. And for Texas now to say, all right, you can come to the state facilities, but everything will be processed by federal personnel. Well, they're already there, and it's already federally financed. And Oklahoma's excuse, by the way, is there are only 4 ID machines in the whole state,
wow,
and those are all at the federal facilities, so you have to go there. They're big machines.
They're doing face-saving stuff.
They do IDs in my management office in my building. I would think they could do IDs around the state.
Right. Let's go to another military base in southeastern California, Fort Irwin, where a lesbian couple was denied participation in a couples retreat. Officials say that they are working to accommodate them, but there is no chaplain there whose religious views will allow him or her to deal with lesbians.
Well, this is the thing. The military hires chaplains, and most of them are Southern Baptists or Catholics, and they refuse to adhere to any non-discrimination.
Get the Salvation Army in there.
Oh, yeah, they're talking better these days. But this is a religious expression exemption. But they're the only ones the military hires. So then a lesbian couple wants to go to the strengthening marriage retreat run by the chaplain, and the chaplain says, "Oh, you are ineligible because you are a lesbian couple, even though you're married." And now the base has to scramble. And the lesbian couple says, scramble all you want, but we don't like being treated differently.
They're going to have to get a traveling preacher, a circuit preacher, to drop in there and all the other bases. All right.
No, they're not. They're going to have to get rid of all the Southern Baptist and Catholic chaplains and diversify their chaplain staffs.
Oh, now you're speaking sedition. I mean, that's going to get everybody riled up if you have to get rid of all these things.
You must have a sufficient staff to deal with all your people. And if you're going to allow these religious leaders to operate on their discriminatory principles, then you have to allow for that.
No.
All right. Congratulations to the San Antonio couples who are suing for marriage rights. They've asked for an injunction against enforcement of the marriage law on the grounds that the anti-same-sex marriage law in Texas violates the federal equal protection guarantees. Yeah. And this is happening more and more in states you would never expect it, and we'll see how all this turns out. Particularly in Pennsylvania, where the federal court trial on marriage is going to start June 9th in Harrisburg.
Why is it taking so long to start?
Well, you have to submit briefs and
That's a long time to wait
papers
for
and
justice. All right, back to the military for a second. In California, the Veterans Administration has been ordered by a federal judge to provide spousal benefits to an Iraq War veteran and her female spouse. Tracy and Maggie Cooper Harris were married in 2008, and Tracy was diagnosed with MS in 2010, was determined to be service-related, but the VA was giving her $124 a month less than someone with a heterosexual spouse, and Maggie wasn't eligible for survivor benefits. The VA was slow on this after the DOMA decision because they have a thing called Title 38 that defines a spouse as someone being of the opposite sex, but it's not clear if this applies to the whole system.
They're working out the kinks in the military, and the sad thing is that they have to do that, but the good thing is that they're being confronted with all these details, and they're having to take it seriously.
People want their money.
Evidently. In Florida, we told you that the University of Central Florida had been ordered to turn over a lot of documents related to their publication of the really heinous Regnerus study, supposedly, of gay parenting, which it really isn't. Well, now the judge who issued that order has recused herself because of some very tangential involvement, and the appeals court has stepped in and stayed the order of the release of the 50,000 documents until a new judge is appointed in the case.
Okay.
Doesn't sound good.
In West Virginia, the Attorney General will intervene on behalf of a county to defend the ban on same-sex marriage there.
Yeah. A little data from Washington State, the southern part of the state. Marriages there have increased geometrically ever since Oregon said it would recognize marriages performed out of state. So everyone from Oregon is going to Washington, or probably California in the south too, getting married and coming back to Oregon for those benefits. And the Ninth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals has ordered an Oregon federal court to reimburse 3 years of health insurance payments.
$6,000.
That were made by a lesbian who's a federal court employee for her partner.
Her domestic partner, not her spouse.
Yeah, well,
and the court says it's discriminatory not to treat domestic partners like spouses, at least in states where they cannot marry.
Which is an interesting wrinkle and is going to further because the DOMA decision and the Prop 8 decision both said that the federal recognition had only to do with actual married couples. Right. So if this is going to be extended to unmarried couples.
I forgot to mention that in West Virginia, a bill has been introduced to repeal the gay marriage ban. And in Kentucky, a gay couple that refused to leave the Jefferson County Clerk's office after being denied a marriage license was found guilty by a jury and fined 1 penny. Did they pay it, or did they go to jail? That's what I want to know.
Well, when you do civil disobedience, you do have to pay
Find
the price.
a penny.
Yeah, but the jury, it was a jury trial,
yes.
And the jury sent out a note to the judge saying, can we not impose any penalty, convict them because they refused to leave, so they're being charged with trespass. And the judge said, no, you must impose a penalty. So their penalty was 1 penny. Oh, and you'll be happy to know that Mary Cheney is trying to regain the high ground. She is going to appear at a fundraiser in Indiana that's working against the proposed state constitutional amendment in Indiana.
But Maggie Gallagher of the National Organization for Marriage agrees with me that Liz and Mary Cheney's their split on same-sex marriage was staged for the benefit of both of them.
You have a very cynical attitude towards life.
In any situation, you always have to ask who benefits. Look, in politics, people would come up to me sometimes and we'd talk about their race, and I'd say, would it help you if I endorsed you or if I attacked you?
Well, that's you. I believe this fight is real.
Okay.
But I don't think there's much to this fight between Representative Michelle Bachmann and New York Rep. Out gay Sean Patrick Maloney. Representative Bachmann every year having helped raise, 9,000 foster kids or whatever.
Amazing.
One wonders what the household was like. But she, nonetheless, has had all these scores of kids pass through her house. And so every year she does a resolution in Congress proclaiming National Adoption Month and Foster Kids Month or something.
With a Democrat.
Yes, it's nonpartisan. It's
So
just, adoption is
Sean
great.
Patrick Maloney's out gay,
And
not
has
one
a
of our
couple of
not one of our
kids.
favorite people,
No.
because he's very conservative. But he wants to add in the contributions of LGBT parents into this, and the Democrat thinks that's okay, but Michelle says no.
And I think, this is sort of gratuitous harassment of Michelle.
You're very liberal.
She didn't write a
You're no
resolution that
Martin
said
Bashir.
only straight parents are being
Right.
honored. She's just honoring adoption and foster care.
In Wisconsin, the idiot governor, Scott Walker, endorsed a 30-year-old anti-discrimination law. Imagine saying we got a nice law here protecting people on the basis of sexual orientation, but he also said, we've got a good ban on same-sex marriage, and it's a nice balance.
Healthy balance.
Healthy balance. We haven't had any problems. Of course, gay couples have had a lot of problems, Scott. And we're getting rid of you. Was that too partisan?
I'll let the viewers decide. Congratulations to the new U.S. ambassador to the Dominican Republic, Wally Brewster, who right after he was sworn in by Vice President Joe Biden, married his partner.
Right.
Which is not going to go over well in the Dominican Republic.
With the cardinal down
with
there.
the cardinal, who
All right.
called him a faggot.
Okay, some other gay news?
Yeah.
The Oregon Family Council has filed a ballot petition that we should have talked about this in the top of the show, that would allow just about anybody to discriminate against LGBT people. It would, quote, guarantee the right of people and businesses to refrain from participating in or supporting ceremonies for same-sex civil unions, domestic partnerships, or marriages if those violate their religious beliefs.
Yeah.
And we know this issue has been coming up. I could jump the gun a little bit. This case was settled by the Supreme Court in the United Kingdom, where they said a guest house, public thing, had to accommodate lesbian couples.
There's also a controversy at the Air Force Academy. They have a guy in charge of their counseling operation there, Dr. Mike Rosebush, who we have discovered was very tied to ex-gay ministries and is very homophobic.
Well, this is called a
overtly.
character and leadership training program that everybody has to participate in.
And he's been there a little while, I guess, but this is all just turned up. And so LGBT groups have been complaining to the Air Force Academy and saying, this guy is outrageous and you have to get rid of him, and this is harassment of these students. So the Air Force Academy says, oh, no, this is fine. And the gay group here is, we have a gay group and they're doing fine and everybody's happy and don't worry about it. So the first thing that happens is an anonymous Air Force Academy cadet who identifies himself, although anonymous, as gay, an athlete on major teams, and a Christian. He tells the Military Religious Freedom Foundation that the Air Force Academy is anti-gay, should not employ this conversion therapist, and that the gay group at the Air Force Academy is window dressing.
But the superintendent of the academy, General Michaela Johnson, she says she called in gay cadets, and that there were no concerns that were raised, even though what you're saying is the majority said that their culture was anti-gay, and most of them aren't out.
Well, then it turned out that
which to me is
that
the test.
they lied, that in fact concerns were raised by the gay group in the private meeting, and that this is all horse.
Oh, and then they tried to say,
Hockey.
no, the concern was this was hurting the image of the academy, which we love.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
It's going back and forth. But, we talk about these chaplains in California at Fort Irwin. This has been 10 times worse at the Air Force Academy,
Yep.
which is notorious for having a virulently homophobic culture.
But things are getting better elsewhere in the country. Fargo, North Dakota has a gay chorus.
Yeah, I love that.
And our friend Rex Wachner, who gives us a lot of our stories, says that this means the end is near, meaning for the success of our movement.
Well, yes and no. Rex has been predicting the end of the movement
for 20 years.
at least. In fact, Mike Signorelli, another of our old pals and colleagues who does the show on Sirius XM radio.
He does the progressive show now, not the gay show.
Yeah, he used to do the gay show on the gay channel, now moved over to the progressive channel. He is writing a new book. He wrote a book called Queer in America years ago. His new book, to be published not next year, but the year after, 2015, says homophobia is alive and well in the United States.
As we tell you each week.
Yeah.
Well, what about that lesbian server in New Jersey at the diner? You know, now the story has come out that the family that says that you know was accused of not leaving a tip did leave a tip, and they said they didn't write anything on her thing about that was anti-lesbian. That could have been done by somebody on the staff behind the scenes, because the server is saying, look, you know, I didn't make this up. We don't know.
We don't know. It's a sad mess, and the family says we're not even homophobic.
Right.
We like gay people. We support gay stuff.
Right.
So there are conflicting receipts, and one has a tip and one doesn't, and one has a note and one doesn't. But well, it's getting a little messy. And speaking of messy, you know, last week's installment was from The Real Housewives of Atlanta, where Portia Stewart, ex-wife of football star Cordell Stewart, was accusing him of being gay and concealing it and being mean and controlling to her. This week's story comes from the Kardashian family. I do not watch the Kardashians.
No, I don't really. I've heard that name, but I make it a point not to follow what they're doing.
One of the kids is this Khloe Kardashian, one of the daughters, and she has been married or with a professional basketball player, Lamar Odom. Well, Lamar Odom made a little drunk videotape, which he posted, that said, "When Khloe is out of town, I'm on the DL."
Why would you? Then you're not on the
he's,
DL.
He's talking about the
he ain't
size
on the DL anymore.
of men's penises, and he's. This is now what's happening in reality TV. Is all this?
Well, once you announce it, you're not on the down low anymore.
Well, there's some question about whether he meant to announce it.
If you want your kids to go to the Myrtle Grove Christian School in Wilmington, North Carolina, you better be on the down low if you're homosexual or bisexual, because they don't want your kids there. And we have a videotape.
Yeah, we told you this story last week, and then this week it turns out that what I love about this videotape and why I want to show it is that members of the community, just a small group of people, came out to protest at the church across the street from the school. I think they're related.
Connected.
And
they're separate entities, but related.
It's just what I love showing week after week is how individuals in the community can stand up, be heard, make a difference, and how those voices are so necessary. So let's take a look at the local news report about the protest of the school's policy of no kids of gay parents.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Craig Reck. Tonight, we're continuing our coverage of a new school policy that's generating plenty of debate in Wilmington. The policy at Myrtle Grove Christian School refuses admission of a student whose home life includes homosexual or bisexual activity. That was enough to attract a protest at the adjoining church this Sunday. WBCT's Casey Cunningham tells us the two sides here look at the same core values for support, but don't see eye to eye on this issue. Casey?
Craig, the protesters had a message for people at the Myrtle Grove Presbyterian Church, and when the service ended, we heard from some in the congregation about this too.
This message of hate to the children of the school really upsets me.
Protesters lined up across the street of Myrtle Grove Presbyterian Church to share their opinion on Myrtle Grove Christian School's new policy.
And I felt like it was important to come and stand in front of the church this morning and let the congregation know, and any members of the congregation that send their kids to the school, that that kind of hatred is not okay.
Their numbers small, but protesters of all ages expressed their thoughts.
They should be treated equally, and it's not fair because they are the same. They just like the same sex, so it's not fair at all.
But this is where the Christ followers divide in their interpretations of the good book.
There's nothing in the New Testament regarding homosexuality. If anybody reads the New Testament with any sort of understanding of the English language, they'll see that Jesus, hung out with prostitutes, with tax collectors, with people that at the time were really looked down upon. I don't think Jesus preached a gospel of hate. I think he preached a gospel of love.
Others believe the school is following the Word of God.
I think they're just following what they feel is right, being instilled by what God wrote. They certainly, as a Christian school, should have that right to choose what they want to instill, but you know, it doesn't mean that we don't love those people.
They say the message is love.
We love everyone. I mean, truly love everyone. We may not love what the sin is. I don't love my own sin, but I do love everyone.
But protesters fail to see that love in a school policy stretching into someone's life at home.
You know, if I had students at this school, they wouldn't be here for very long because that's not part of our family values.
It's not
We have reached out to administrators at Myrtle Grove Christian for an on-camera interview, but we've been told it won't happen. Another thing to point out, the Myrtle Grove Church and school are separate, but share the same property. Reporting live in the studio, Casey Cunningham, WECT News.
That woman doesn't love her own sins, but would she want her children kept out of that school because of her sins?
Yeah. It's not a sin, by the way. It's great fun and love.
Yeah.
All right. More news.
But thank you to those kids and parents who were
beautiful,
out there.
Beautiful. And thank you to the RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights. They dumped a donation by Orson Scott Card for its auction. Orson Scott Card being the guy who wrote
Ender's Game.
Yep, who's very anti-gay. It was a story creation workshop for a high school valued at $25,000. And in dumping him, they cited their support for LGBT rights worldwide, including especially in Uganda.
And I guess,
who knew?
Do we congratulate MSNBC for dumping Alec Baldwin?
Well, I mean,
they didn't like his show. They didn't like him.
It wasn't working out on a lot of levels, but then I think Baldwin gratuitously said, well, this is a big feather in the cap for the gays, you know, fundamentalists like the guys at GLAAD and Andrew Sullivan who attack me all the time. But he deserves what he gets because every time he gets angry, he speaks filthy anti-gay stuff, and he's got to get it under control. Adam Lambert has volunteered to pay for his therapy and rehab. Alec, if you're serious about getting over this problem.
I had no idea Adam Lambert was doing so well. But I think that's, stations cancel shows for the most part because the ratings are not good. They think the show is boring and not going to get any better. And the guy was a jerk behind the scenes yelling at the staff and everybody.
I understand that, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have a
No,
problem.
he's blaming us for his own problems,
Right.
no question.
In Delta County, Colorado, a school board member there, Catherine Swenson, dismissed the idea of legal equality for all transgender students until they get castrated, presumably referring to boy-to-girl transgenders. She explained as long as they can impregnate a girl, they're not going into the girls' locker room. Charming.
Not a very enlightened or sophisticated knowledge. And Robbie Rogers, the soccer player who came out as gay, quit the league, and then because he didn't think he could keep playing as an out gay man, and then was brought back because everybody said, what are you, crazy? You're about 24. You have a big career ahead of you. Don't quit now. So he's reflecting on his first year as an out gay soccer player in the big leagues, and he said of his teammates, the guys were so supportive and it was great, but there were also times when the guys didn't know they were being homophobic. Maybe they didn't know I was in the room, but they'd say things like no homo, or they'll say something's pretty fruity. It doesn't really bother me, but it's like they still need to learn. Someone that is closeted is very hypersensitive to that stuff, and if that's going on in locker rooms where I am and everyone knows about me, imagine what happens in other places.
Sure.
And he talks about getting some great mail and some horrible mail. But then he says he's hooked up with a new effort called Beyond It. I don't know what that is. But they're going to have a symbol ready for the Olympic Games. And athletes are going to all wear this magnetic green stripe pin. And that's going to be a symbol against the Russian anti-gay laws. And I think, really? A green rectangle, and then you have that paragraph 6 thing, P6. Rainbows.
Yeah. Secretary of State John Kerry took time out from hammering out the breakthrough agreement with Iran to mark the Transgender Day of Remembrance, saying the United States will engage diplomatically to address challenges of transgender people around the world and use the Global Equality Fund to support efforts against anti-transgender violence.
Okay.
Then there's this really horrible story out of Bloomfield, Connecticut. It's a story not unlike the new movie Kill Your Darlings, which was about something that happened basically 60 years ago with Allen Ginsberg well, anyway, a high school football captain, Terrence Mitchell, 18, had a relationship with a guy named Ronald Taylor, who's 27. And when Mitchell tried to break it off, Taylor posted a picture of him on Facebook with the caption, "Bloomfield gay football player." He took it down, but he threatened to repost it if Mitchell left him again. So Taylor texted Mitchell that he was coming over and it wasn't going to go well. So Mitchell armed himself with a knife and Taylor punched him and Mitchell stabbed him. And then when Taylor ran away, Mitchell pursued him and stabbed him to death. Very, very sad story.
It's
disturbing.
Hard to know the reality of what was going on, but this older man, younger guy, seems a little exploitative, seems a little abusive.
But also everybody's fears around being exposed as gay as well.
Ugly.
Yeah. And then there's California. We may disagree about this. The right-wing referendum to overturn the new law protecting transgender students. I would say at this point it looks like it almost surely is not going to come up with enough signatures because the rates of verification are running quite low.
That is certainly, well, not quite low,
well,
but
in
lower,
the 70s,
lower than necessary.
They need to be in the high 80s.
Low to mid 80s.
Yeah.
These are random checks of the signatures and their veracity. And the spot checks are not looking good for the right wing, but I just don't want us to get carried away. You know,
let this cup pass from us is what we're saying.
There have been many instances where we thought we were going to win and we didn't, and I just don't want to, including Prop 8.
Get busy educating everybody about it.
And there is a new effort there's an ongoing effort to raise the issue of the right of transgender people and transsexuals to serve openly in the United States military, as they do in other militaries around the world. And so far it's against the law. So people are starting to come out as ex-military who are transsexual, and now we're starting to hear about people who are trans who are in the military, and there's not only a campaign but some videos that are starting to be made, some that are closeting people that are doing them in shadow, but some that show people in open service. And there's a website called transmilitary.tv where you can see the beginnings of this video campaign. Very interesting. So they're going to put up a whole video series next year, but they've started putting up trailers.
So I believe it was a guy who came out, trans man, right?
Yep.
They don't immediately dismiss you?
I don't know if they've connected to this yet.
Okay, well, it's on video.
Yes, it is. You can take a look, transmilitary.tv. And we want to remind you again, as we will continually through this holiday season, that you can find out about helping some homeless LGBT youth. In New York, they have a gay Santa program at one of our favorite places, New Alternatives for Youth. If you write to Kate at newalternativesnyc.org, she can give you information about that program.
Yes, you actually help an individual young person through that
And we
program.
should give you a little information. Free speech is going into its pledge drive in the next couple of weeks. Our airings will be limited to Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday airing. Check their schedule. We also told you our Friday airing time was going to change in a few weeks. That's been postponed, so we will be on at our regular time for our first airing on Friday mornings.
Let's go to Russia.
Okay.
I don't really want to
No,
go
let's
there.
not. Yeah.
But here's the news from Russia. First of all, IKEA, the big furniture place. They spiked an article from their Russian customer magazine, IKEA Family Live, that featured a picture and copy about a lesbian couple. And their spokesperson told a Swedish news site, "It is important for us to be neutral between religion and politics." There's that issue again. They're worried about breaking the Russian law. And the Swedish gay group said, give it a chance and see if they slap you down. We'd really like to know if you're not even going to be able to do an ad like this.
IKEA said we have 2 guiding principles: home interior design and following the law.
So
the Rusa LGBT group here in New York,
the Russian gay group.
Yes, they decided they were going to do something about this. So they went to the local IKEA in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and made up their own little pictorial: gay teddy bears, gay elves, gay couples in IKEA settings in the store.
Well, it was a photo shoot organized by Joseph Hofhannon, who's the co-editor of Gay Propaganda Russian Love Stories, and a Russian artist, and Nina Long of Rusa.
Yes,
so,
they're in the purple sweater.
Yes.
So they put all this up online so that they could do an alternate version of the IKEA magazine. We will continue our efforts against IKEA. In fact, we're going to go back to Red Hook, Brooklyn, mid-December, December 15th. We'll tell you more about that as we go along.
And bad news from Moscow, where the gay club Central Station, which was shot up last week, was gassed this week. While 500 were in attendance, several patrons had to seek medical attention but didn't go to the hospital. It's the 4th incident against the club since these new laws came into effect.
And the member of Pussy Riot that's still in prison wrote a letter saying that the West has got to do more to condemn Putin, these attacks being a good reason why.
I didn't see the Pope saying anything to him about the way he's treating us
Absolutely not.
when he met with him.
No. A little shocking. But the Pussy Riot member said we still should be talking about boycotting the Olympics.
Francis, stick up for Pussy Riot and us.
But the Pope did speak to the meeting of the European Olympic Committees, which was meeting in Rome, I guess, and said athletes should not be commercialized. Sports should be about harmony, not money.
I'm with him on that.
That boat has sailed, Pope.
Well, all right. How about that Elton John?
Let's do Johnny Weir first, because he comes up chronologically. Johnny Weir was on NBC this weekend commentating some figure skating competition, pre-Olympic. He said, "Oh, don't worry, gays will be safe in Sochi." And Tara Lipinski, working with him, also former skating star, said, "Such a shame that this controversy has been raised." So Johnny Weir and his husband are, of all things, appearing at Barnard College this coming Monday in a little Q&A with some Barnard person. And we are going to protest his appearance and his statements. So all you have to do is on Monday, 5:30 p.m., meet us at Broadway and 117th Street in New York. We will have our famous big rainbow banners, maybe a new Johnny Weir specific one. Gilbert Baker is working away. And we will let Johnny Weir know what we think of his statements of don't worry about gay people in Russia.
I mean, some of these gay celebrities, and this is true of Elton John as well, I mean, they're very contemptuous of the movement that makes it possible for them to be out and enjoy the fruits of marriage and all these other kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then they act like, well.
And Johnny Weir, for all his flamboyance, was very late coming out.
Yes, yes, I know.
Elton John.
It was a real shocker.
Yeah, we're all stunned. And Elton John apologizes for how late he was coming to the AIDS fight. People give him an enormous amount of credit, as we have heard from viewers and others, about the millions of dollars he's donated.
He has done tremendous work, but why do you have to sing at Rush Limbaugh's wedding and then, go to Russia?
Well, in Russia, evidently, he's given a lot of credit for donating money to fight AIDS in Russia.
It's a good thing, because they got the biggest AIDS rates in Europe.
Yeah, so we're going to greet Elton John, who is appearing at Madison Square Garden next week, with a little more positive message about please speak out against Putin and the anti-gay laws.
Oh,
when
tell
you're
him not
in
to, and then he
Russia.
will.
Well,
that's the way he operates.
I saw one email that said he's already planning to, but he's going to put it in the form of a song, so he won't be prosecuted. But we'll be outside.
It'll be art.
We'll be on 7th Avenue outside Madison Square Garden on Tuesday at 6:30. So there's your beginning of your week next week.
Okay.
Monday, 5:30, Broadway and 117th, Johnny Weir. Tuesday, 6:30, Madison Square Garden, Elton John.
We're very busy, and we'd like to see more of you out there.
We sure would, because it's very amusing. Now, the speed skater Blake Skellerup from New Zealand, who's trying to get into the Olympics in Russia, I'm not sure whether he got through the qualifying, he's been meeting secretly with the gays in Russia.
Yeah?
Yes.
How's it going?
Well, he's been hearing a lot of their personal stories. He says it's chilling. Yeah, no kidding. They're getting shut up and gassed. He wants to be out at the games and open in Sochi and but be out overall.
But in Leipzig, they had a right-wing conference featuring the anti-gay Russian member of parliament, Elena Mizulina, who was the architect of the Russian anti-gay law, and it was disrupted by pro-gay activists, and she said, Russian gays are much more cultured. Well, what does that mean? That they know their place and that they've been cowed into the closet by you? And she said that the law was not the cause of the anti-gay violence.
Right,
it was not causing anti-gay violence.
Meanwhile, Pussy Riot supporters did block Putin's motorcade when he was on his way to meet with the Pope, and they said, we spit on Putin.
Good.
Nice.
Now, the St. Petersburg LGBT Film Festival, side by side, the opening was disrupted by a bomb threat, but the festival has gone forward.
And the second day, there was another bomb threat. Putin, by the way, and I appreciate the fact that what we have forced him to do is deal with this. He said,
he lies.
Our law, we're just protecting minors. We don't hate gay people.
Lies.
Everybody should be treated. It's all lies. Bob Costas at NBC says he wants to do an interview with Putin and ask him about the laws.
It doesn't matter what he lies.
Yeah, you've already heard his answers. But another word on another internal NBC meeting where a top executive said that they're going to cover the gay stuff, the controversy at the Olympics.
Well, I'm not seeing any of that on the Today Show in the morning. It's all Celebrate Sochi. We're running out of time. And the Arcus Foundation has been joined by the Council for Global Equality and the Open Society Institute, Soros people, to establish the Russia Freedom Fund to groups working to end discrimination and violence in Russia based on sexual orientation and gender identity, some to groups there, some to groups here.
The trick there is that there is a law in Russia against outside financing of these groups, and no one yet has figured out how to get the money to these groups. So we have asked Arcus and this coalition, how are you going to get the money into Russia?
Right.
And they say, don't worry, we're working on that.
All right. We're running out of time.
Yes, other international news. Well, you mentioned in Britain, a bed and breakfast in Cornwall lost its appeal of a court ruling that said they could not discriminate against same-sex couples.
In Bristol, England, a man wrongly accused of being a pedophile was burned to death by his neighbors. Rumors flew that this guy had been taking inappropriate pictures of kids, but a police investigation found he had been photographing kids who were vandalizing his prized garden. And this was misinterpreted by neighbors who decided to burn him to death.
Oh, my God. The president of Taiwan says he supports same-sex marriage, which is up for a vote in the legislature, but that they will need a high degree of consensus. And meanwhile, the religious right is organizing against it. They're going to hold a big rally this weekend. They got a petition going. Not good.
And in Rome, the Vatican killed an exhibit of photos by guns. We have pictures of this.
We have a
video report?
videotape. Let's run the video report of the Vatican censoring same-sex couples. This was a protest, same-sex couples kissing in churches.
In Rome.
What I like about this is how pretty the churches are.
But it turns out nobody told the Vatican. You see, the Vatican has killed Gonzalo Orquin's photography exhibit, Trialogo, which depicts same-sex couples kissing in churches located throughout Rome. And the exhibit was scheduled to open on Wednesday at the Galleria l'Opera, but the photos were covered up after the Vatican threatened legal action against the gallery. The Spanish artist says that in the 8 years that he's lived in Italy, he's found the country to be extremely homophobic and backwards compared to other parts of Europe. The Vatican spokesman, Claudio Tanturi, told the local that the decision wasn't based on homophobia. He said, quote, "Italian constitutional law safeguards an individual's religious feeling and the function of places of worship. Therefore, photos that do not conform to the spirituality of the place offend the particular place for the expression of faith." So now if you go into the gallery, instead of seeing same-sex couples displaying their love in a public place of worship, you'll only see censored frames. Now, Gonzalo Orquin and his lawyers are working on their case, and they hope the photos will be presented eventually.
I detect a theme in this show.
Yes.
Religion, gay people.
In Grenada, Seventh-day Adventist Church held their first anti-gay march in St. George's November 24th, and 2 gay activists got in there and waved rainbow flags.
But in New Delhi, India, hundreds of LGBT activists marched for equal rights. Very good. And also good news, gay Nigerian, 18 years old, got asylum in Malta.
And did we do Colombia? A lesbian couple there is poised to win joint parental rights. But
oh, this is too complex.
Well,
I couldn't even
but the
finish
decision
reading this.
could undermine court victories for marriage rights by including language in this decision that says there's a special role for heterosexual parents.
This is all so theoretical.
Well,
the mayor of Madrid has imposed large fines on the LGBT pride operation for noise, too much noise in the neighborhood. The neighbors are up in arms about the noise these festivals cause. I have to say I'm a little sympathetic to that. And a gay football ref in Scotland complained he was abused with homophobic slurs. He complained about it from the players and the fans, and he got fired. So he's upset.
AIDS news.
Okay.
December 1st is World AIDS Day, and there's going to be a rally in Times Square by Housing Works, GMHC, IKEA, and ACT UP, quite a coalition, to end the epidemic in New York. What time is that going to be?
I think you said... Did you
No,
say?
I didn't
I think
say.
it's 2 p.m.,
Yeah.
but
I don't think I had the
look
time.
it up. World
Okay.
AIDS Day, December 1st. Obama signed the HIV Organ Policy Equity Act, allowing transplanted organs from one HIV-positive person to another, but there seems to be a problem in New
Apparently,
York.
there's some New York procedures that are interfering with this, and we haven't gotten an answer yet about whether that's going to get fixed.
And then the American Board of Obstetricians and Gynecologists issued this edict that OBGYNs could no longer deal with anal cancer in men, even though they're so experienced at cervical cancer in women.
Because they're not supposed to treat men, except in very rare exceptions. We're a women's profession.
Nonsense. My neighbor, who's an OBGYN, was outraged by this and says, what about all the transgender patients I have?
Right.
And then they reversed themselves in 24 hours because everybody got so upset.
And, okay.
Entertainment news. You want to run through some reviews?
Well, yes,
quickly?
I will run through them. We got pictures of this. A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. It's set in 1909. It's a new musical. That's Jefferson Mays in the front of the bicycle there, playing 8 or 9 Dysquiths family. The guy in the back is a poor relation who wants to kill all the relatives so that he can inherit the fortune. It's a comedy.
Yeah, I got that.
But that one scene there was kind of a fag joke, and I didn't appreciate it about the guy being gay. But it's a pretty good musical. I saw having seen The Twelfth Night, which was what I said was the best Shakespeare production I've ever seen. The Richard III is one of the best Richard IIIs I've ever seen, with Mark Rylance, and that's in the front there. That's Samuel Barnett as Queen Elizabeth, not Elizabeth I. It's an all-male production. Rylance is very funny and scary. And then finally, the Waiting for Godot picture. We've got the X-Men, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. I have a Marxist interpretation of this. It really shows the oppression of the 1% against people, but it's also a very funny play and a very poignant play, and it's a classic, and I highly recommend it.
And I recommend you go to the Brooklyn Museum to see their new exhibit, Twice Militant, Lorraine Hansberry's letters to the latter, author of Raisin in the Sun, married to a man but a lesbian, and wrote letters to this early lesbian publication, the latter, ecstatic that it existed. And they have an exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum of this correspondence that's quite fascinating. Let's take a moment to see if we can squeeze in the HBO promo for Looking, which will be the male equivalent of the L Word. Gay men in San Francisco, starting on HBO in January.
Looking is about a group of gay friends living in modern-day San Francisco, looking to connect, looking for love, and living their lives.
Is gay pot? He's a very sweet guy. He's just slightly round. And not only are we exploring, issues with love, but also within our career and self-motivation issues.
It sets up the three of us are friends, but then we each have our individual storylines.
We want it to feel like we're just dropping in on the lives of these characters in progress.
It's about their friendships, their relationships, their work life. It's kind of embracing all the elements of their life.
Michael and Andrew really encourage us to make choices, and we get to discover things along with the writers, and that's exciting because there's a lot of room for exploration on set.
This is San Francisco. That's why I live here. If I didn't want to have a life, I'd move to LA.
It was very important to me that we shot it in San Francisco. It has a tone and an energy all of its own, and I wanted the show to reflect that energy and that feeling.
We wanted to shoot what it's like to be on the street in San Francisco and shoot what it's like to be in a bar and in apartments and feel those spaces the way that people live here feel them.
There's been, gay characters in gay shows on TV before, but never told in this sort of way.
A cool thing is that there'll be an appeal to kind of different groups of people.
We're telling some new stories here, and it's really exciting.
Who did that wonderful movie Weekend, which was quite realistic about a British gay couple that sort of meets and interacts. And
I certainly suspect this will be better than the sitcom versions of gay life, but I loved the L Word on Showtime. Not the real L Word, which was a mess, but the fictional L Word.
And I don't know how many of those actors are out gay, but certainly Jonathan Groff and Russell Tovey there and others. And Chris Cooper and I want to recommend the movie Mandela, The Long Walk to Freedom. I found it deeply moving, and it's really about the personal life of him and Winnie, and it's warts and all. And Chris said that Idris Elba was magnificent in every way.
So again, hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Hope to see you Monday at 5:30 at Barnard to object to Johnny Weir. See you next week.
Bye.